Thank you very much, Neil. And what a privilege it is to be here, Ambassador, Minister, Professor Simons, Richard, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen. I wish to begin by saluting the Ontario Heritage Trust as guardians of this province's history for what they've accomplished here today in this official opening. I've often told people that we cannot know where we are going unless we know where we are. And we cannot know where we are unless we as a people know where we have come from and why. This is at the heart of the Trust's mission. And this remarkable commemorative center is a stellar example of a facility that inspires us all to learn more about our origins. And I hope you've all had an opportunity to take a look at some of the exhibits. I know I enjoyed my tour prior to this morning's festivities. So much of the story begins just over 220 years ago, for it was in 1791, on Boxing Day, as a matter of fact, 1791, with the Constitutional Act's enactment, that John Graves Simcoe was sent out by King George III to govern Upper Canada. He arrived here in 1792 with his artistic wife, who we have an undying gratitude for her artwork, which gives us unique and frankly the only pictures of the time period to remind us of what this place looked like back then. And when they arrived, his first order of business, to meet the expectations of the colonists, was to set up a legislative assembly. Now, under the terms of the Act, the provincial government was to be comprised of the Lieutenant Governor, an appointed Executive Council, and a Legislative Council, and an elected Assembly. The Lieutenant Governor, in effect, in many ways, was a military governor and basically ran the place. And I've long regretted that that system has never not at all. The legislature, and if you've had the opportunity of being to the main lobby of Queen's Park, the Legislative Assembly building, you see the staggering and beautiful, colorful picture of the legislature meeting for the first time in Newark, which was then the provincial capital. But Simcoe decided that Newark, which we of course all know as Niagara-on-the-Lake, was simply too close to the border with the United States and thus vulnerable to attack. So he moved the capital here to York, and by 1794, construction had begun on a dedicated Parliament building located right here at the intersection of Front and Parliament Streets, hence the name. By June of that year, the structure had been completed. It was an edifice grandly called the Palace of Parliament. In fact, it consisted entirely of two simple wooden buildings which resembled military barracks. And for almost 20 years, it served its purpose. But in 1813, in one of those cosmic strokes of irony that fate often sends our way, the Palace of Parliament suffered the very fate that Simcoe hoped to avoid by moving from close to the American border to here. It was attacked by American forces and burnt to the ground. Now, history says that this was all part of the American military battle plan to destroy, or at least disrupt, the government of Upper Canada. But recently, at an 1812 dinner here in town hosted by the Queen's York Rangers, the Defense Minister, Peter MacKay, talked about discovering some new information, which I'd like to share with you. He said that the real reason the Americans invaded Toronto was that they were looking for the Stanley Cup. But all of the Torontonians they encountered on the streets of York told them very, very quickly, "Oh no, you'll never find the Stanley Cup in Toronto." I don't know this to be true, but Dr. Simons, perhaps some of your top researchers can check in the veracity of this story. Well, we are celebrating this year, of course, the 200th anniversary of the War of 1812, a defining event in the history of Canada and especially of this great province of Ontario. So it is entirely fitting that the kickoff event for Heritage Week 2012 should be the opening of this new interpretive center, on the too long forgotten site of our original seat of government in Toronto, the Palace of Parliament. The theme for this year's Heritage Week, Defending the Nation, encourages us to discover the many ways in which the War of 1812 affected Ontario's development. And in the same year that we celebrate the Diamond Jubilee of Her Majesty the Queen, learning about Ontario's first Parliament reminds us of the historic role played by the Crown in our parliamentary democracy. So as the Queen's representative in Ontario, I commend Dr. Thomas Simons and the Ontario Heritage Trust for your faithful stewardship of our province's historical artifacts and its memory. And I wish you all another successful and illuminating Heritage Week. Thank you.